Module 1, Section 4, and this video is going to cover only Objective 1. Objective 1 says to develop general pattern recognition using whole numbers. Okay, and this first example is on quilt blocks. Okay, so Fabian is playing around with ideas for putting a border, and that's misspelled. So a border around some quilting squares. He makes the following patterns with different colored blocks of squares. The border of each block consists of small dark gray squares. He continues the pattern, or if he continues the pattern, how many small dark gray squares will be around the border on the next two quilt blocks? Describe the pattern of change. Okay, so what we have is a small quilt block, a middle-sized one, and then a large one. And you want to come up with a larger one and even a larger one still. So two additional ones, okay? So if you notice, every single time, so this first one is made up of 9 blocks with just the outside gray. And this one is made up of 16 blocks with just the outside is gray. And this one is 25, which is the outside is gray. So what are the next two going to look like and why? Okay, so pause it here, try to figure it out on your own. What can we recognize just looking at the patterns themselves? So this first one is 3 across and 3 up, right? And the next one is 4 and 4. Okay, so they're squares, and they're increasing one at a time. So 1 block each direction, 1 high and 1 wide. So the next one would be a 6 by 6, wouldn't it? Okay, and I'm not going to, definitely not going to draw it right. Okay, so let's see. If I do 6 across, it's going to be a little bit longer, and I'll do the 7 one here in a minute. Okay, so there's 1, there's 3, 4, 5, 6 across. Okay, so not too bad. There we go. And then these outside squares are the only ones that are gray, right? Okay, so just the outside, that's another pattern that you can follow, right? So it's only the outside blocks. Yes, my coloring sucks. Only the outside blocks are gray. Okay, and if we continue the actual pattern that he has, there's an X through the center. So that's probably part of the quilting that he's doing. Okay, so there's our next block. Seems to follow the pattern, and then the next one's going to be even bigger still, right? Okay, so this one is 6 by 6. 6 this way, 6 this way. Okay, I'm going to draw the next one and then come back. And there you have the next one. So it's a 7 by 7. The outside border is gray, and then there's the X through the middle. Okay, so we've drawn the next two. Let me slide it over just a little bit. There we go. So draw the next two quilt blocks, which we did. Okay, how many small dark gray squares will be around the border on the next two? Okay, so we can count them up. Is there an easier way of counting other than just counting each one individually? Sure. Yeah, we could count, let me change a different color. We could count that many because it's the same as this, right? So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, which is the same as this. So we have a 6 and a 6. And then on the side, these are just 4, right? So 4 and 4. So using kind of shortcut, we're having a 6 and a 4 is a 10. So here's a 10 and here's a 10. So there are 20 gray blocks. Okay. I'm going to just say grays instead of gray squares. Okay, so let's use the same type of shortcut to do this next one. So this would be 7 because that's the width, right? So 7 and 7. And if I take one off the top and one off the bottom, this part over here will be 5. And this part will also be 5. Okay, so 5 and 7 is 12. 5 and 7 is 12. And 12 and 12 give you 24. Okay, now let's look back and count the gray ones over here. We never did do that. So that way we can see what the pattern really is. Okay, so with theirs, we have 3, 3, 1, and 1, right? So 4, 4 gives you 8. Okay, then the next one we have 4, 4, 2, and 2. So we have 4 and 2 is 6, and there's another 6. So 6 and 6 is 12. Okay, the next one we have 5, 5, 3 and 3. 5 and 3 is 8. 5 and 3 is 8. 8 and 8 is 16. Okay, so now we're looking at describing the pattern of change. So only with the gray blocks. So to go from 8 to 12 to 16 to 20 to 24, what are we doing? And we're adding 4 every time, aren't we? Okay, so that's the pattern of change. So how many gray blocks would he need to make for his next bigger block? Would add 4 more. And I'm not going to draw it this time, but you would need 28 gray blocks, right? Okay, very nice. Okay, here is another example, and it is called growing dots. Okay, technically the dots aren't growing bigger, just the number of them is getting bigger. So if the dots continue to grow in the same pattern, how many dots will be in the next 2 figures? Okay, so that's what we need to figure out first. And then we need to describe the pattern of change. Okay, so first of all, let's figure out what the new figures are going to be. We need to figure out what they're doing, right? So if you look at this one, it's just a single, that's easy. But now here's our single, and we added 2 under it. So we made a triangle out of it. So here's the single, and then the 2 we added, and now we added 3 more to make it a bigger triangle. So there's the 1, it's spaced kind of strange, 2 under it, the 3 under that, so that is this shape, and then we add 4 under it. So the next one, we'll need to start with what we have here, and then add another row under it, right? So let's see what that's going to look like. Gonna make it a little smaller, move it over so we can draw some more. There we go. Okay, so we're going to start with what we had. Whoops, that's not lined up very well, is it? Let's try it again. And start with this one. Now we're going to add another row under it. Okay, mine's not exactly balanced, but that's what the next figure will look like, right? Okay, let's go 1 more. So, see if I can get it straighter. Yeah. Okay, so there's 1. There's the 2 under it. And the next 3. Whoa, it's a little big. And so that's the row that we just finished. And now I need to add another row. Okay. Okay, so the question is, how many dots will there be in those 2 blue ones? So let's see what we have to begin with. So we had 1 to begin with, and now we have the 1, add 2 more. So we're going to add 2 here, and we get 3. And then we're going to add 3, so we get 6 because there are 3 in this bottom row, right? Then we're going to add 4 to get 10. You can see the number that we're adding increases by 1 every time, right? Okay, so we're going to add 5 here for a total of 15. And then we're going to add 6 here for a total of 21. Okay, so we answered the question, how many dots will be in the next two figures? 15 and 21. Describe the pattern of change. We kind of already did that, but let's do it again. Okay, so every next pattern adds 1 more than was added the time before. Okay, so what would we add this time? Would add 7. So there would be 28 in the next triangle, right? And then would add 8, and then would add 9, okay? On this page, you're trying to find, fill in the blanks with the numbers in the sequence and the numbers in the table. Now, I put the answers in blue so you could see what was added. Okay, again, the punctuation and the underlines and the italics and stuff didn't come through very well in your lecture notes, so this kind of helps you see a little bit more of what's happening. Okay, so A, we're adding 3 every time, right? Okay, so that's what they said here. You add 3 to get to the next term. So add 3, add 3, add 3. 46 add 3 is 49. 49 add 3 is 52. Okay, here, this one's a specific sequence. It actually has a name, and I'll tell you in just a second. 1 plus 1 is 2. 1 plus 2 is 3. 2 plus 3 is 5. 5 plus 3 then would be 13. 8 plus 13 is 21. And that's called the Fibonacci sequence. Okay, Fibonacci. He was the guy that invented, created that, whatever, and you'll see it again probably in your college career. Okay, and this last one was a table, but you can't exactly tell what it was. Okay, so the 151 and the 39 are the ones that are missing. Now in a table, you generally go sideways. Okay, so we go this way. So what did we do to get from 18 to 26? That is going to be the same every time. Okay, and because this is an add section, that's probably where you need to look first. So to go over here, we added 8. Does that work here? Yep, it does. Does it work here? Yep. Okay, now this one, what would you add 8 to get to 67? And there's actually a typo there as well, isn't there? Okay, it's not 39, it's 59. Add 8. Okay, so make sure you make that correction in your lecture notes. Okay, let's do the other side. Okay, D. What did we do to get from one number to the next? Okay, and we're adding or subtracting because that's what this chapter is. So since we're getting bigger, we're going to add 9. Now here, we're adding 10. So it looks like we might have a pattern. Yep, we're adding 11. Here we add 12. So we're going to add 13 this time. Okay, so 94, add 13. If you can do it in your head, that's fantastic. So 107. And now we're going to add 14. Okay, so it's 11. 1, 0, and 1 is 2, so 121. Okay, on E, they're getting smaller, aren't they? So we're probably going to subtract. So what do you subtract from 67 to get 56? Okay, so this is 67 minus what gives you 56? Okay, so if we subtract 56 from 67, we get 11, right? So if I put an 11 in here, does that work? And sure enough. Okay, so we're subtracting 11. What's this one? Looks like subtracting 11 again. Okay, so we're going to subtract 11. You take 1 away from the tens place, 1 away from the ones place. Subtract 11, 1 away from the tens place, 1 away from the ones place. And the table. Let's see what's happening. Okay, so going across, they're getting smaller, aren't they? Okay, so this is going to be a subtract. What do we subtract from 21 to get 16? It's 5. Do I subtract 5 to get from 50 to 45? Yes, I do. So it looks like subtract 5 is going to be your rule. So 112, subtract 5. Okay, so this becomes a 10, that's a 12, and we get 7 and 10. So 107. Now, what number do we subtract 5 from to get 98? You do the opposite. You add 5. Okay. Do the inverse operation to go the other direction, right? Okay, so 13 and 10. So 103. And that is the end of Objective 1.